Before we begin, let me thank you for watching this video, and if you enjoy it, please like and subscribe. There are boundless opportunities for adventure in the world George R.R. Martin has created, and with your help, we can explore the wonders of Planetos, from the brightest heights to the darkest of depths. Daemon Targaryen is one of the most compelling and complex characters in House of the Dragon. A charismatic anti-hero who walks the line between heroism and villainy. However, in Season 2 of House of the Dragon, the depiction of Daemon Targaryen has been critiqued for losing much of his depth and nuance. But let's us move on to how the show failed Daemon Targaryen this last season. Method 1. Inconsistent characterization. Daemon is portrayed as a multi-dimensional character. He is a fierce warrior, a loving yet flawed brother to King Viserys, and a wild card with his own agenda. His love for his family, particularly Rhaenyra, is complex, and he straddles the line between ambition and loyalty. In Season 2, his personality becomes overly simplified, transforming him into a caricature of the violent, power-hungry Targaryen. He seemingly wants to go into business for himself, as king, having deemed Rhaenyra as weak in her approaches to the coming war. But he lacks the subtlety and maneuvering he had in the first season, bumbling his attempts to win the River Lords to use his cause and causing more hurt than help to the Black's cause. Method 2. An excessive use of brute force to bend others to bow to his will. In Season 1, Daemon's violent tendencies are balanced with moments of vulnerability and intelligence. For instance, his brutal slaying of the crab feeder is followed by a more introspective moment of quiet victory. His violence, though extreme, serves a narrative purpose and ties into his complex motivations. In Season 2, the emphasis on Daemon's brutality intensifies to the point of overshadowing all other facets of his character. He becomes a figure using his power as a bludgeon, unwisely empowering the Blackwoods to carry out his will in the Riverlands using the Targaryen name, an action that causes him no end of difficulty in trying to rally the River Lords to his banner. Method 3. Reduced political savvy. During Season 1, while impulsive and prone to violence, Daemon is also depicted as a shrewd tactician with a firm understanding of politics. His actions, while extreme, are often part of a calculated strategy, such as when he seeks to create his own power base by taking Dragonstone, or again, when he sneaks into the Vale to assassinate the Lady Royce, his wife, knowing full well how he must look to have his hands clean in the matter. When Rhaenyra says she doesn't have to care about what the common people think, it's Daemon that reminds her how wrong that assumption is, saying that losing the small folk will lose her the kingdom. So while rash and violent, Daemon has also displayed a more calculating side, willing to play the long game to see himself to his ultimate ends. Into Season 2, Daemon's political acumen seems to vanish, replaced with a brute force approach to nearly every conflict. He tries to command immediate loyalty from the River Lords to little effect. His subtle manipulations and political maneuvering are exchanged for rash, ill-considered decisions that come across as reckless rather than cunning. He no longer seems to be thinking several steps ahead, making him appear less intelligent and more reactionary. Method 4. Total bamboozlement. By Alice and total submission to Rhaenyra. Daemon's treatment by Alice Rivers is by far the most egregious violations to the character created by George R.R. Martin. Like him or hate him, and certainly there are parts of the fandom that feel both of those for him, he is a force of chaos, an unpredictable variable in the equations for power in the world of Game of Thrones. His willingness to be still hedging his bets on himself during his argument with Rhaenyra in episode 2 of season 2 was one of the standout scenes of the entire season. Yet by the end, after being thoroughly mind-violated by Alis, he totally becomes a pawn of Rhaenyra. Season 1. Daemon is portrayed as fiercely independent, with his own ambitions and desires. He constantly challenges his brother's rule and seeks to carve out his own place in the world. His decision-making is guided by his personal aspirations, not just his desire for power. Daemon's character arc becomes overly intertwined with Rhaenyra's storyline by the end of Season 2, reducing his personal ambitions to mere extensions of hers. Rather than having his own distinct motivations, by the end of this season, he is portrayed as little more than an extension of her power struggles. Seriously considering taking the kingship for his own throughout the season, he is utterly cowed by the final episode, having been manipulated by Alis to give up his agency. His complexity as a character is reduced when his agency is tethered to Rhaenyra's political arc. His vision of the future somehow convinces him Rhaenyra must sit the throne, though how he comes to such a conclusion with such vague imagery is beyond. And that is even before we speak at length about the Alis Rivers situation. And we will talk at length about it because the deconstruction of Daemon Targaryen demands it. To further expand on how Daemon Targaryen's character was ruined in House of the Dragon Season 2, it's essential to examine how his relationship with Alis Rivers played a significant role in his downfall. The portrayal of Daemon as being easily manipulated by Alis Rivers, a woman of powerful sorcery and cunning, contributes to his character's decline. Below is an analysis of how this dynamic undermined Daemon's persona as a sharp, politically astute, and commanding figure. Throughout Season 1, Daemon is portrayed as someone difficult to manipulate. He is self-assured, independent, and driven by his own ambitions. Even when he follows others, it's more by choice than submission, such as when he aligns himself with Rhaenyra. His sense of autonomy and control is central to his character, making him unpredictable and dangerous in the political games of Westeros. Season 2. Daemon's entanglement with Alis Rivers reveals a vulnerability and gullibility that is inconsistent with his previously shrewd nature. Alis is depicted as a master manipulator, using her sorcery to influence Daemon's dreams and thoughts without him ever realizing the extent to which he is being played. This reduces him to a pawn in her larger schemes, casting doubt on his once imposing political savvy. Rather than making decisions based on his own cunning, Daemon is portrayed as someone who is easily duped, completely unaware that Alis has been gaming him from the beginning. Season 1's Daemon's independence and personal ambition are core aspects of Daemon's identity. He resists outside influence, even from those he loves. His decision-making often reflects his personal goals and desires, particularly his ambitions to establish his own power base. This makes him a formidable figure, both in battle and in political machinations. But Season 2 sees his entanglement with Alis Rivers strips him of this independence. As she manipulates him with her sorcery, particularly through his dreams, Daemon becomes less of an autonomous player and more of a puppet. Alis's influence over Daemon is portrayed as subtle, yet pervasive. His failure to realize that she is controlling him makes him appear naive and less self-aware than in previous seasons, where he was a sharp judge of character. This manipulation tarnishes his image as someone who is always in control of his destiny. Her telling him he's going to die in the Riverlands seems to be a qualifier to make her his advisor, though it's obvious that her and the Lord Strong, the steward, are in league with each other. Obviously, the audience sees the sly smirks Lord Strong makes, even as Daemon the consummate schemer completely misses them. Up until now, Daemon has been depicted as a man who trusts in his own abilities and intelligence. He's skeptical of outside forces and demonstrates a healthy degree of caution when dealing with sorcery or unknown elements, despite being a Targaryen with ties to magic through his dragons. Alice Rivers uses sorcery to subtly influence Daemon's dreams, playing into his ego and ambitions while secretly twisting his perceptions. This aspect of his story feels like a betrayal of Daemon's cunning and his self-reliance. The fact that Daemon never questions the legitimacy of his visions or dreams suggests that he is too easily swayed by Alice's influence. His loss of agency, brought on by her manipulation, weakens his character by portraying him as someone who can be controlled by forces he doesn't even recognize. Daemon is characterized as a ruthless, cunning warrior and political player who is hard to outwit. He repeatedly demonstrates his ability to outmaneuver opponents both in battle and in court politics. His ability to spot treachery and act on it quickly makes him a dangerous adversary. His relationship with Alice Rivers flips this dynamic on its head. Alice, a witch with deep knowledge of sorcery and prophecy, uses Daemon's own ambitions against him. Through manipulation of his dreams and desires, Alice keeps Daemon blind to her true intentions. Daemon is depicted as being completely unaware that he's being played, which undermines his character's intelligence and ability to spot threats. Alice's success in manipulating him makes Daemon seem almost foolish, a significant departure from the sharp, dangerous figure he once was. Daemon is seen as a decisive leader, whether on the battlefield or in his personal ambitions. He takes charge, commands loyalty, and makes bold, if reckless, decisions. He balances his ruthlessness with a strategic mind, making him a figure to be feared and respected. As Alice Rivers manipulates him, Daemon's decision-making becomes clouded and erratic. Rather than being the calculating, forceful leader of Season 1, Daemon becomes reactive, relying on dreams and visions influenced by Alice. His decisions no longer feel like they come from a place of calculated ambition, but from a distorted sense of destiny implanted by Alice. His leadership weakens as he unwittingly becomes a tool for Alice's ambitions, showing a dramatic loss of the control he once held over his own fate. Daemon has an aura of mystique, unpredictability, and power that makes him both feared and respected. Even Rhaenyra, the Queen of the Seven Kingdoms, is shown to be somewhat afraid of her volatile and powerful uncles. He is the rogue prince, dangerous and enigmatic, with an almost mythic quality that makes him a larger-than-life character. Alice Rivers' manipulation through sorcery strips Daemon of much of his mystique. His susceptibility to her influence diminishes his imposing presence. Instead of being the master of his fate, Daemon is shown to be vulnerable to magical manipulation, making him appear weaker and more gullible than before. This saps him of the aura of invincibility he carried in Season 1. Daemon is a powerhouse of potential, dangerous, unpredictable, and even brilliant at times, strategically removing roadblocks to power. His arc was set up to explore the deeper complexities of his character, potentially showing how he navigates the escalating tensions of the Dance of the Dragons while maintaining his fierce independence and ambitions. The plotline with Alice Rivers reduces Daemon's potential for growth and development. Rather than becoming a central, autonomous figure in the Dance of the Dragons, he becomes embroiled in a subplot that sees him manipulated and outwitted by a secondary character. This reduces the scope of his role in the story, sidelining his potential as one of the key power players in the Targaryen civil war. By the end of the season, Daemon is effectively neutered, made to be small, and put in his place by Alice, whose character seems to have been altered from the books to put Daemon in his place in the show so the rogue can become Rhaenyra's neutered puppy. A travesty of utter disregard and misuse of a great character that evokes strong emotions on both sides of the fandom. In Season 2 of House of the Dragon, Daemon Targaryen's character arc suffers significantly due to his relationship with Alice Rivers. Once a cunning, independent, and fiercely driven figure, Daemon is transformed into a pawn who is easily manipulated by Alice's sorcery without even realizing it. His loss of agency, reduction in intelligence, and blind susceptibility to manipulation undermine the strong foundation built in Season 1. By allowing Alice Rivers to outsmart and control him through sorcery and manipulation, the show diminishes Daemon's role from a complex anti-hero to a gullible victim of magical influence, thereby ruining much of the depth and intrigue that made him such a compelling character in the first place.